Hey guys, today we're going to go over how to solve multi-step equations. So not just a one or a two-step equations, it can have even more than that. Make sure you have your notebooks, your journals. We're going to be on page 24 and you need a pen or a pencil to write with. At the top of page 24, the first thing I'm going to do is fill in a couple of blanks right here for some vocab. For solving multi-step equations, it says, if possible or when necessary, blank like terms on the same side of the equation first. So that is combine. Last week we also talked about combining like terms. After you combine all the like terms, then we want to isolate the variable to solve the equation. This bottom part, it's our picture from last week in our journal on page 22. So I'm just reminding you the coefficient is the number in front of the variable. The x, or the letter itself, is our variable, and then the number that's being added or subtracted by itself, that's called the constant. So I'm going to use these words a lot: constant, variable, coefficient today when I'm explaining how to solve these equations. The bottom of page 22, it has the 4 questions we're going to work out together. Your homework today, or your assignment, is going to be simply just solving things like this. I'm going to keep our steps up here at the top to remind myself, but you guys remember, if you need help, you could go back and look at page 22. 22 for help if you want to go back and look at those. All right, last week you guys told me one of the first things to do was split the equal sign. So I'm going to do that. Then we're going to try to isolate the variable and do inverse operations. But this time, when you guys look across, we don't have just 2 quantities over here. I have 4x plus 14 plus 4x. So the new thing today is combine like terms. I have 2 quantities that have the variable x. So that means they're alike. So I'm going to go ahead and box, including the sign that's in front of the coefficient, because that's important. They're not always the same sign. So both of those happen to be positive 4x, positive 4x. So when I combine them, I get 8x. Then I'm going to bring down the constant number, plus 14 equals 38. Now we're at the point that we were last week with just a 2-step equation. I have my variable and coefficient, 8x. I have my constant number, plus 14 equals 38. I'm going to do the opposite of positive 14. I'm going to draw a box around that. And then this week, some people were not maybe doing it correctly. So I'm going to write the exact opposite of it underneath on both sides of the equation instead of just on one, and see if that helps some people out so they know what to write. Now positive 14, negative 14, these cancel each other out to be 0. 38 plus negative 14, or 38 minus 14. It's your choice on how you want to write that, but you would get 24. I'm going to bring down my coefficient and my variable of 8x, and then I'm going to say equals 24. The last step is the opposite of multiply or divide. Right now, this is multiply. So the opposite of multiply would be divide by 8. I'm going to go ahead and show on both sides dividing by 8. That's how I cancel out the 8 and only have x left. Then I could type in my calculator, 24 divided by 8. If you were unsure, that equals 3. So I'm going to say final answer, x equals 3. Question number 2. This one is written a little bit backwards because they have the total first, then the equal sign, and all my information is on the opposite. So again, my first step for you guys would be split the equal sign. I have more than just 2 quantities of my variable and constant over here. I actually have 2 variables. So that's why I need to combine like terms. Positive 10n, negative or subtract 40n. When you type that into your calculator, Make sure that you type 10 first, then minus 40, so that you make sure and see it's negative 30n. I'm going to bring down my constant number, plus 3 equals negative 12. I'm going to put a box around my constant number because that's what I'm starting with, the opposite of adding or subtracting. Right now, this says positive 3, so the opposite is negative 3. I'm going to write it on this side and over here on the left side. I want to keep my equations balanced. Now when I solve, positive 3 and negative 3 cancel each other out to be 0. Negative 12 and negative 3, you can type negative 12 plus negative 3 or negative 12 minus 3 in your calculator. You should get negative 15 equals negative 30n. So currently that is multiply. So I'm going to do the opposite of that, which is divide. Divide by negative 30. Divide by negative 30. Please make sure, do you see that the negative 15 is on top? When you divide, the top number goes inside the box if you had to work it out. When you type it on your calculator, the top number goes first. So when I set this up, it's going to say negative 15 divided by negative 30. If you type it the other way, you're going to get a different answer. For this one, you're going to get n equals positive 0.5 or 1/2. Question 3. This one looks a little bit different. We've got a fraction in the front. If you would rather change that out to be a decimal, you can. In your calculator, type 1 divided by 2. If you do that, you should get 0.5. So if you would rather substitute that, you can put 0.5 as your coefficient. Okay, split the equal sign. Then start looking. I've got 0.5b plus 8 minus 10. This time, my two numbers that I need to combine are my constant numbers. So I'm going to put a box around those, positive 8 minus 10 or negative 10. Those go together to make negative 2. I'm going to bring down my variable or my coefficient, 0.5b minus 2 equals 6. Now I'm back to that two-step equation again. So I can do the opposite of add or subtract. The number that I'm trying to subtract right now is the 2. So the opposite of negative 2 or subtract 2 is positive 2. I'm going to put that on both sides of my equation. Draw my line so I can total it out. Can bring down my variable if I want. 0.5b, negative 2, positive 2 cancels each other out, and then 6 plus 2 makes 8. Then the final step would be the opposite of multiply. 0.5b means multiply, so I'm going to say divide. I'm going to draw a dividing bar or a fraction bar and put 0.5 on both the left side and the right side. When I type this in my calculator, I type 8 divided by 0.5 equals, and you should get b equals 16. Last question we're going to look at. Again, this one is written backwards. They put the total first, the equal sign, and then all my question. So step 1, before I even get started, I'm going to split the equal sign. I'm looking for things that are alike that I can combine. You'll notice we have two variables with the letter W. So I combine those. I'm going to box, including the signs. Always pay attention. 7W plus 2W makes 9W. Bring down my constant number of plus 8.5 equals negative 14. Now I'm going to start working backwards with that two-step equation process. Do the opposite of adding or subtracting. Right now it says positive 8.5. The opposite of that would be negative 8.5. I'm going to write it both on this side and over here on the left. When you type this in your calculator, negative 14 minus 8.5 or negative 14 plus negative 8.5. After you do that, you should get negative 22.5 22.5. Oops, I'm going to back up and use a different color so they're not the same. Negative 22.5 equals, I can bring down my variable and my coefficient of 9w. Then the last step is the opposite of multiply or divide. Right now I'm trying to multiply by 9, so the opposite would be dividing by 9. Divide by 9, divide by 9. When I set this up in my calculator, I'm going to write negative 22.5 divided by 9 equals, and you should get W equals negative 2.5. All right, that's all you guys have to do. We'll look at stuff on page 25 tomorrow, but now you're ready to go download your homework to Metamoji and practice solving multi-step equations. We'll look at this question on page 25 tomorrow, but right now you don't have to do it.